Good morning, my colleagues. How are you? Thank you very much for coming, and I welcome you all to this presentation. I would like to make it clear that it's not going to be a teaching session, it's not going to be a training session, it's just a sharing of knowledge and experience with you. Last module, Michael observed me and he found some good things, and he said that these 2 or 3 points should be shared with other faculty members. So we discussed and planned it for you, so that's how we are here for you. Please, this is the attendance sheet. You sign it and pass it to the other while you're
I sent one around already. Sorry about that.
All right. For this section?
Yeah, for this one.
It's coming from there. The 2 things that my observers thought were very good. Number 1, getting students into and out of groups. And number 2, a very strong rapport among the students and feedback from student to student. How I did all this is I trained my students during the first week of the module. So, to me, the first week of the module is very important. So, tone setting and community building. By tone setting, I mean your expectations as a teacher are clear to the students. Students know very well what to do, when to do, and how to do that. And my class is my community. And in this community, a strong spirit of friendliness and understanding prevails. Without this spirit of friendliness and understanding, a situation like this may appear. Without friendliness, without understanding among the members of the community, you cannot achieve your objectives. You can see for yourself. There is a seminar on community, and a presenter saying, if you could all just turn off your cell phones, pages, Blackberries, and unplug your iPod, will begin. What if they don't turn off their cell phones and pages? What would you do? Building a community is not an easy task. There must be an easier way to build a community. Building a community is laborious, no doubt, but not impossible. The first days are critical. Why? Number 1, what you do on the first days of school will determine your success for the rest of the module. This is what I believe. And point number 2, why I think the first days are critical. You will either win or lose, so what you do during the first week will be an accurate indicator of your success as a teacher. Now, before going to my next part of the presentation, I would like to show you 2 examples from my last observation, how I set the tone and how I built the community. In the first example, you will see how students get into and out of the group with amazing speed and facilities. And in another example, you will see a feedback from student to student. into and out of the group. This is how I set the tone. I'll explain it later. Another part of my observation, where feedback from student to student, strong rapport, not only between teacher and the student, but between students and students. Students come to the front of the class and he asks, question number 1, my answer is B, what's your answer? Students say it's the same, or if a student has a different answer, he raises his hand and he says, teacher, my answer is different. So, how I trained, how I set the tone and build the community. This presentation has 5 parts. Part number 1, what not to do on the first day of class. Getting to know your students. Classroom setup. Teaching behaviors. Establishing routines. Now we are going to discuss them one by one. Do not start right in teaching. You and the class need to break the ice, get acquainted and bond with one another first. Do not begin speaking in your students' language if it can be avoided. Speaking in students' language is neither a sin nor a crime. I don't think that it's not suitable. You can use student first language, yes. But to what extent should you use the language? It depends on your class, your students, their level, their age. But on the first day, I think, we should avoid speaking students' language, because after that, they will expect and they will rely on you for Arabic language. Do not correct any pronunciational errors at this point. This is discouraging at this point. Allow them to use the language, allow them fluency. Do not give more attention to the brighter or more outgoing students than to the weaker ones. On the first day, how do you know that this student is a brighter student than the other? I think when a student is able to speak 3 or 4 sentences correctly about himself, like my name is Ahmed, I am 19 years old and I am from Jeddah, it's enough to think that this student is brighter than the other ones comparatively. But do not give more attention to this brighter student. Give equal attention to all the students because this is the tone setting period. Do not spend too much time talking about yourself, especially your personal life. Are you married or not? You have 5 children or 10 children, I think. This has nothing to do with the teaching and learning in the classroom. You do introduce yourself briefly. Your name, your qualification, your experience, yes. But not much about your personal life. Do not criticize the book that has been selected by your school for the class. If this is not your favorite textbook, or even if you hate it, you must not at any time allow your personal attitude to be known. And on this point, I would like you to say something. What do you think? This is the first week, as we are now in the first week. What do you think? Is it just and suitable to criticize the book? Is it suitable to let your own personal feelings, make them known to the students? What do you think about that?
I don't think so. You should try your best to make them like the book or feel that it's valuable and worthy of study. Otherwise, they won't get interested in it.
Brilliant. Any other ideas?
I think that's right.
What if you don't like the books? What if you hate the books?
Your students won't like. Your student.
So what would happen if some teachers, do this? They criticize the book and they pass negative comments about it.
Sure, the students will lose interest right away.
Any other ideas?
You have set a negative tone, If you're setting the
Absolutely
tone,
right.
you already set a negative tone.
So, does it set the right tone and build up a community? Absolutely not. So, do not criticize the book that has been selected by your school for the class. If this is not your favorite textbook, or even if you hate it, you must not at any time allow your personal attitude to be known. So the first things first, getting to know your students. Most of the points we are already doing. Greet students with a welcoming smile and a pleasant attitude on day one. Dress professionally, as we always do. Introduce yourself briefly. Do not spend too much time on introducing yourself, your personal life. Play games to get to know your students. For example, name bingo, truth and a lie game. Why? Because they provide a fun beginning, relax initial social anxieties, and help create mutual respect and understanding. Most importantly, take your time and get thoroughly acquainted with each member of your class. At least you should remember their names. Call them by their names. Explain the various study objectives and show very briefly how these can be met during the course. This is, your expectation must be clear. The study objectives of the course must be clear to the students. Instead of criticizing the textbooks, instead of passing negative comments about the textbooks, what we can do is introduce and describe in a very favorable way the course books and show how, with your help, the materials give them all the information and tools they will need in order to be successful in improving their English and achieving their objectives. The most important part, administer a learning style inventory to understand how each student learns. And this you will have to do again and again. You will have to apply different methodology, different techniques to get to know that what is the best learning style that can facilitate my students throughout the morning. Classroom setup. Organize your classroom keeping in mind the size of the room and the number of students. Sometimes we have 30 students in a small class. Sometimes we have 15 students in a very big class. We'll have to organize that class. We'll have to think about pair work and group work. And how can we facilitate group work and pair work with no disturbance or minimum disturbance? Attach names to chairs or desks if possible. If possible. For example, when I ask my students to get into groups the first day, I use cards of different colors. I give them, okay, all the blues come here, all the greens come here, all the yellows. So, first the parent group, and then their own color group. And after the discussion, they come back to their parent group with different colors. Attach the names with the chairs. They know that what is my chair and where do I go. Set up the classroom in an attractive yet safe manner. No one should be hurt, no one should get injured. It should be a safe transition from pair to group work and from group work back to their own seats. Place chairs and desks in rows and columns that can later be transitioned into groups for cooperative learning. As an example of some seating arrangements, this is one example. You can choose any seating arrangements from here depending upon your classroom size and number of students. Here are some more suggestions on this. U-shaped classroom, theater, boardroom, banquet. Choose the seating arrangement that is best suited to your needs. For more ideas on seating arrangement and the rationale behind using the seating arrangements, you can check this website. This website will help you get an idea about more seating plans and their rationale. www.teachingexpertise.com. This website is useful because you will get a lot more ideas on grammar teaching, on reading, on writing, on so many other aspects of language teaching. So facilitate your students, arrange them into groups, into pairs, according to the size of the class and the number of your students. Teaching behaviors. This is the most important part of week 1. What you teach in week 1, what you establish in week 1, will facilitate you all through the module in week 2, 3, 4, 5, and so on. What I do to teach behaviors, number 1, I tell my students clearly what is expected of them. If I'm teaching a grammar lesson, what is the expectation? If it's a reading lesson, so what's the expectation? If it's a writing lesson, what's the expectation? What is the sequence learning? Sequence of learning for grammar. Sequence of learning for reading. Although it's not important to tell them the terminology, it's not important to teach them the theory, but it's important for them to develop a habit. Your expectations must be clear to the students. Direct students' attention towards rules, routines, and procedures regarding absence, late work, testing, grading, getting students into and out of group, feedback, general decorum, and maintain them all through the week. And after that, all through the module. Review each rule individually. Do not just direct students' attention. Review them. Review each rule every day. Review them again and again so that they get acquainted with it. Model the appropriate and inappropriate behaviors. Appropriate behaviors that keep students on task. Inappropriate behaviors that keep students off task. On-task activities and on-task behaviors are required and they are endurable. Off-task activities and off-task behaviors are not commendable and are not acceptable. On-task activities will produce the results. Off-task activities will take them to digressions, take them away from learning. For example, using mobile phones in the classroom. This is a common problem here in Saudi Arabia. Students don't want to turn off their mobile phones. How do you deal with this inappropriate behavior? How do you deal with this? Is this appropriate behavior or inappropriate behavior? So, can be appropriate if students are using a dictionary. They are searching for a word, for a dictionary. They are using a dictionary, it's okay. But if they want to chat on Skype or if they want to attend a call, what do you think? Is this appropriate or inappropriate? Inappropriate. How do you deal with this here in your classes?
You know, last time I had repeaters and they did not like turn off their phone or put them on silent mode. So they would use them. Like if I asked them or not, they would use them. So what I did that, I asked them, okay, fine, I'll give you 2 minutes after an activity or something. Then you can take out your cell phone, check it. You'll check it. You know, if I tell you or not, you'll check it anyway, right? So I gave them 2 minutes. So that kind of helped me.
Very nice. Fine. Any other idea?
Well, if it is something they're using it for, certain words are different, but if they're using it like texting or for any other thing, what I do first, I tell the person to turn it off. Before you class, I tell the students, no cell phone. Everybody turn off their cell phone, not only put it in the pocket, but turn it off completely. Don't call, you don't receive call, you don't call. But if the student, any student, uses the phone, and I ask him, I say, okay, first time I warn the student, and the second time, I take the phone, put it on my desk, tell him after the break, you come and take my phone.
Right, so that is a beautiful idea. Yes, please.
I usually have a chair in the central of my class, and during the first few weeks, I ask them to put their mobile on the chair. And after that, usually if some phone rings or something, someone is playing on the mobile, I just stop speaking. And usually their friends or some other person sitting next to him, they stop.
Wonderful idea.
Make them believe, or they will make you believe.
Very good.
From the first day, please hang a picture of the mobile. Please, no mobile in.
So set the tone during the first week.
Establish your classroom language from the first day.
Very good. Excellent ideas. Okay, so we'll have to model. What I do, for example, I show my students my mobile phone first. See, switch off, turn it off. And I put that into my bag in front of my students. And I ask them, please, you turn off your mobiles and put your mobiles into your pockets. Do not put your mobiles into your laps or your chairs. Sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Practice constantly throughout the week so that students become familiar with them.
Excuse me, back to the use of mobile. Okay.
Yeah, please.
It's not enough to give directions. You have to be persuasive. You have to convince them of the disturbance that a mobile phone might cause in a classroom. It will distract their attention. Because these students are used to just accept rules without understanding them why. So
Right.
once you convince them, persuade them, so you don't need to say this again.
Right. I agree. Constantly appreciate students for following rules, phrase, stars. Star of the day student, star of the week student, honor roll, personal note. At this point, I would like to show you another video that I downloaded from the YouTube, and I was inspired about establishing routines and teaching behaviors. Here you will see how a teacher trains her students during the first week and how she sets a tone.
I need to see all unstructured. If I was a student, I would be sitting here next to you.
idea for this video, and I thought I should apply this to my own classroom. So, in the beginning, I tried it like, for example, I said to my students, please stand up and get into groups of 4. They stood up and they started talking. And they were confused as to what 3 other partners to go with. Should I go with these 3 or that 3? They started finding out their own partners, and it created chaos. It wasted a lot of time. So, after that, I changed my mind. I said, okay, let them, sit in the class, in the chairs, and then, for example, I set the chairs in a theater style, 1, 2, 3, 4, with a space for the teacher to move around for monitoring, and then 1, 2, 3, 4. I train my students, for example, student 1 and student 4, they will put their chairs and they will come face to face with these 2 students. Okay, first of all, this group 1, okay, the rest of the class, they watch, they see. Okay, group 1, okay, get into groups of 4, go. So immediately they pull their chairs and they come face to face with one another. So getting into and out of the groups, this is what I say, teaching behaviors. Like this teacher, direct students' attention towards rules, routines, procedures. This is just an example. Then review each group individually. Model the appropriate and inappropriate behaviors. Practice constantly throughout the week so that students become familiar with them. Constantly award, appreciate students for following rules. Praise them, assign them, make them stars, honor roll, personal growth. Establishing routines. Establish and analyze ideas and beliefs about classroom procedures. Research different routines and procedures that coincide with these ideas and beliefs. Make sure that routines are reasonable and age level appropriate for students to follow. And the last point is, be flexible in establishing routines and procedures, allowing some changes if any to be made to suit the needs of students. After this, I have got some ideas here. Here we have 101 ideas to do during the first week or during the first 2 weeks. I borrowed a lot of ideas from this website, and I thought it appropriate to share it with you. Some of them may not be suitable to our teaching context here at ELI, but a lot of them do. So this is for you. Thank you very much. In essence, a well-managed classroom is a predictable environment where both teacher and students know what is supposed to happen in the classroom. If you manage a classroom, do not discipline a classroom. Part comes when you make life predictable for people. This is what your experience says. Any questions, please?
Thank you. Thank you for this fantastic presentation.
You've talked about how you train your students to get into and out of groups quickly, and how you were inspired by that video in your thinking about how you can train your students to get in and out of groups. How do you do other aspects of learner training in week one? Like what specifically do you do with your students?
Yeah, on week one, for example, I tell them what are the different stages for a grammar lesson. For example, first of all, it will be the warm and leading, and after that, I will set the context. And then I will explain the structure, the meaning, the form. And after that, we go into the control practice and semi-control and then the fluency practice. Similarly, in a reading or listening lesson, I tell them that what are the different stages of this lesson. So they don't know the terminology, but they know pretty much about the stages, what is going to happen now. For example, skimming, scanning, and fluency practice. These three stages, they are very well aware of that, and I give them a practice on week one. I tell them, I explain the things. Another thing, when I explain the course objectives, there I explain, for example, you are expected to do this on grammar, this on reading, and this one on writing, or other aspects of it. Yes, please.
Hi. Thank you for the presentation. The video you showed was of, I think, primary school children, young learners. Okay. So obviously there's a big difference psychologically, between a teacher and a learner at that age with young children. Obviously we're teaching young adults and adult learners. Okay. So in my experience, I've done similar techniques, but have you ever had the case where an adult has been offended or hasn't wanted to react to that kind of dynamic? And if you have, how did you overcome that? For example, like, some learners would be offended if someone clicked their fingers. Like, I would be offended if someone clicked their fingers and wanted me to move. I might be offended, for example. So I've had the case where some learners get hesitant. So I would like to know how have you had that experience and how you dealt with that?
Not at all. Secondly, I don't point my finger at a student.
No, absolutely.
I always say, okay, go. This is just an indication. In this video, the teacher says 1, 2, 3, go. Just I change it. I say, okay, go. That's it.
Excuse me. How do you overcome communication problems in your class? For example, there's a lot as a teacher that you want to get across to the students. You want to say to them. You want to explain. But at a lower level, with certain low-level students whose understanding of the land is not up to what you expect, there's a lot of gap between the teacher and the students. I mean, you really want to say a lot, but you can't because your Arabic is not that good. I mean, at a certain level, probably you would like to speak some Arabic with them, but you can't. So how do you overcome this communication gap?
Sometimes I explain what I want to say, and then I ask a good students to translate it into Arabic for them, if I think this is suitable.
Like, for example, you spoke about explaining to them the course objectives. Now that's a mammoth task. Explaining course objectives to the students of say level 1 or 2 even. So I mean, it takes a lot of language wherewithal on the part of the students particularly to understand that. And even a better student in the class would probably not be that good as to So like I personally find it hard to explain certain concepts related to can-do statements, course objectives. Even if I want to, do this, I'm hard put to. So I really seek your help on some such issues.
Yeah, your question is quite good. That sometimes we want to explain, and the students' level of English is not that they can understand the teacher. Yeah, it seems to be a very difficult task, but we have to do that. Sometimes we grade our language. We use the
we stuff their folders. Frankly speaking, we stuff their folders with can-do statements, with course objectives.
We don't have to go.
Some of them are provided with Arabic translation.
Yeah.
But I have my serious reservations about how much of that they really understand.
We don't have.
The folders are all stuffed with a lot of materials. But if you were to frankly ask even the best of the students as to what the course objectives are about, you would be disappointed as a teacher. So this is one area,
We don't have to go through word by word. you know, just the important things. The student should know what important things are there that I should go through and I should learn.
That's why the course objective is translated in Arabic also. Can-do statement course objective is translated in Arabic.
Even though
Teacher should show interest in their native language.
even though without translation or resorting to translation, you can still simplify your language with them. All I want you to know how to build up a good sentence, a correct one, how to understand the meaning of a particular word within a sentence, so you don't have to use within a context or so. So the simpler your language is, the better for them.
And again, it should be so much was said about the first week here, you know. I hardly had more than 2 students this first week. Now, this is an important week as for your topics and the tone setting. But when am I supposed to set the tone? When I have no students?
In week 2.
From the second week, I'll already be into the middle of my course. And I'll be under the course pressure. Right, I wouldn't have time to set any tones or, you know, so when it's the right time for tone setting, I have no students.
It's flexible.
So, like, I mean, it's flexible, quite rightly, but I mean, quite a lot of time is wasted. And after the second week, I'm under a lot of course pressure.
Right.
So I have to do, I mean, I don't have time for this, like, these start out to be, in practice, these start out to kind of experts.
You can take the whole week into one day. One day is enough for that.
The first day?
Check the tone.
Is that one day, the first
and
day?
build it.
If that's the first
The
day.
first way, no, the first day of week 2. Do take some time. Do not take the whole week. If in week 1 you have got the students, okay, go with that. If not, do set the tone and build up a community. Do give your students a sense of community. If you start teaching, you will be in trouble and your students will cause some big problem for you in the later part.
Thank you for clarifying that. So the second week could also be kind of taken as the first week, and you can do
It's
something.
not a matter of exact time, it's not a matter of fixed time. You need to be flexible with that.
Or whenever
It depends on the
you
situation.
Probably we can tone down our tone in the first week.
Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, sir.